Welcome to Sex Talk with Merryn and Laura. Now, I think sex is a topic that can be a little bit tricky for some people, and it's one of those topics that I think is avoided sometimes in healthcare professional consultations. So I really wanted to talk to Laura today about sexual function in women and just see if we could provide you with some really helpful tips and tricks and address any issues that you may be having, or you may have friends or family who have issues who may not be wanting to talk to their healthcare provider about these, and we'd encourage you to do so. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that the information that we provide today may well empower you to go and have a chat with your healthcare provider if you are having any issues in this area. But we're also hoping that we may well even just be able to enhance your sex life if it's really good, even right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and also feel free to share with your friends as well and help get
the message out. So we think around 40% of women actually have some sort of issue with sex. And traditionally we divide the sexual function in women into 4 parts. So there's libido, which is that initial desire and wanting to have sex. And for a lot of women, that can be a really tricky area. Some women really struggle with libido, and I do often see women who have libido issues and would like to know how to improve their libido. The next area, if you like, is arousal. So that's kind of the sexual excitement and feeling excited and feeling ready and wanting to have sex. And then obviously there's a lead up then into orgasm. And again, there can be all sorts of issues with orgasm. And I've seen ladies who find it difficult to orgasm. And then I've seen ladies who actually have too many orgasms. So that there's a whole spectrum of issues in that area. And then we talk about resolution, which is, again, that kind of finishing off point. And that's probably where we see some of those issues with ongoing orgasm or pain, those kind of things. And pain is another area too. So a lot of people can have pain in any parts of that sexual function. So pain right at the beginning, with even with pain with arousal and excitement, through into sexual intercourse and pain with orgasm even in some women, and pain on resolution or afterwards. So, these are all areas that can be something women want to talk about and want to have information on. I think too, one of the big things I hear from women is fatigue and lack of energy, and that can often feed into libido. So, Laura, do you have friends and people who often say they're tired and they're exhausted?
Well, absolutely. Well, even for myself. So I work full time. I have 2 children. My husband owns his own business, and it's hard. Being exhausted is hard. And it's very common among my friends as well. To say at the end of the day, after I take care of the kids, I take care of myself, I take care of my family, I've got nothing left. It's very common.
It is, isn't it? And so I think that aspect of rest and sleep and self-care is really important. And this is too where you may well want to see your healthcare provider if you do have fatigue or tiredness. It might not just be because you're so busy or you're not getting sleep. There may be an underlying issue, and I would encourage you to see your doctor or your healthcare provider to be checked for things like thyroid, iron levels, vitamin B12 levels, cortisol, any of these things, and even things like celiac disease. I have actually seen people who've come to me simply with fatigue and found that they have celiac disease, which is a gluten intolerance. It's not actually an intolerance, it's a real inability for the body to process gluten because of an autoimmune disease. So there can be a number of reasons that are medically treatable for fatigue or tiredness. But yeah, absolutely, this self-care comes into it. And so what are some strategies, Laura, do you think you might recommend to women in particular for self-care and trying to get rest and sleep when they've got so many responsibilities and things that they're juggling?
Well, I think for women it's hard because we're used to putting ourselves last. So for me, it's just taking, and it's not all the time, and it takes practice, because once you try to do this, it doesn't always feel like the right thing to do. I should always eat last. I should always be the last one to go to sleep. But what I try to do is I try to make sure that I get all my meals and that I do eat. And second, I try to make sure I drink enough water during the day. Sometimes I found that I'm so busy running around everybody else, I don't even drink water.
Yeah.
Getting to bed at a reasonable time. Sometimes that's hard though, because if and I'm speaking, obviously I have young children, but at the end of that day, that's your alone time, like that's your time. But it's finding a balance of that and make sure you're getting enough sleep.
That's right. And I think too that really there's a little bit of a mindset in here too, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So as women, we do often put ourselves last, and we don't often see sex as something that we deserve or something that we should enjoy. And I think it's really important for women to change their thinking around sex and see that as being a reward for all the things that they've done that day, and to see it as an enjoyable activity, which is part of self-care. We deserve to be, to feel good about ourselves, and we deserve to have orgasms and, to have that sexual joy, if you like, with our partner.
Absolutely.
And so, I think we need to change our mindset a little bit around that and actually see that as being, a reward and a good thing and not another chore, because I think there is a tendency for women to think, oh God, now I've got to have sex, now I've got to give something else to someone. And I think really we should be flipping that around, changing that around and reframing it and saying, well, hang on a minute. This is for me too. Like, yes, I'm going to be giving to my partner, but my partner's also going to be giving to me. And I think that's really important, and to really be looking forward to that as an enjoyable exercise. Yes. And that brings me to the next topic around sexual joy and sexual enjoyment. And that is really knowing your body and knowing what you do like sexually and helping your partner to understand what you like sexually. And I think that traditionally has been quite difficult for a lot of women, because for some reason we've almost been taught not to tell people what we like or what we want in the bedroom or in sexual activity. So I think it's really important that we know. And so, self-exploration and those kind of self-pleasuring activities are actually really important, so that you can understand what you like, and then you can then communicate those with your partner. And it's important for your partner to know what you like, and also for you to know what your partner likes. And I think this kind of communication can sometimes be a little bit difficult for some couples. So if you're good at being direct, that's fine. You'll communicate easily. But you could also maybe turn it into a game where you maybe say, hey, I'd really like to tell you what I like in the bedroom, or I'd like to tell you what I might like to try tonight. Is there anything you might like to try? And you can turn it into a little bit more of a kind of a lighthearted conversation in that way. So I'll often recommend that couples schedule sex, and I know that sounds really unromantic, Laura, but if you're...
It's necessary though.
Yeah, I think so.
Otherwise, too much time just goes on. And
that's right. If you're so busy and there's so many things happening, I think it's really easy just to kind of fall into bed and try not to think about it really. So I think it's a really important part of your relationship, and scheduling it is perhaps something that might work for you. And even if you just choose one night a week or 2 nights a week, and again, this is a very individual and personal issue as to how many times you think either one of you need or want to have sex. But I think it's important that you're both on the same page in relation to that. So, and choose a night where the day hasn't been too crazy, you're not likely to be too stressed that day, you don't have, a lot of activities or people flying in all different directions, and maybe even you're going to be able to get together as a couple at a reasonable hour, so that you've got time for each other as well. The other issue that a lot of women tell me they struggle with is body image. And I think growing up, a lot of us have been taught, unfortunately, that there's a particular body shape, a particular body type that's seen as desirable. And what I've learnt over 46 years of my life is that men and sexual partners, whether they be women, men, or non-binary, are generally interested in you as a person and sex as an enjoyable activity. So they're not so caught up in, whether they think your breasts are big or small, or your bottom's big or small, or what have you. It's more the whole enjoyable activity, if you like. What do you think about that, Laura, that issue of body image?
Well, I think it's something I certainly struggled with. My body is not the same, the same that I started with in the beginning of our, me and my partner's relationship 12 years ago. Things are a little bit lower than what they used to be and a little bit softer than what they used to be. But as you said, it's more about the experience and about the person. And my partner has never made me feel unattractive or, and if anything, sex has only gotten better with age and as things change. So it's really kind of what you said about talking to your partner and finding out what works for the both of you and what works, and knowing yourself and what works for you. Then it just doesn't become much of an issue.
Yeah, and I think too, we shouldn't be focused on ourselves. So when you're in the bedroom or in an area where you're wanting to have sex, I think take the focus off yourself. Mm-hmm. Try and focus on your partner. Try and focus on the absolute now of the experience. So how things are feeling, smelling, all of those kind of sensory inputs, and take the focus off you. Stop worrying about you, mm-hmm. and really concentrate on what's mm-hmm. happening. I think
mm-hmm. Absolutely.
is a good. It's kind of like mindfulness mm-hmm. in the bedroom, mm-hmm. if you like.
Mm-hmm.
I really love a quote from Kate Blanchett, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but essentially she said that the scars on her body told her story. And I think that's a really beautiful way of mm-hmm. thinking about, our bodies as we age and after we've had children, mm-hmm. Or if we've gained weight or lost weight or changed mm-hmm. in any way, that, any changes on our body, any marks or what we might see as imperfections are really perfections. Mm-hmm. They're actually our story, and we need to embrace our story, embrace our stretch marks, embrace our cesarean scars or surgical scars or any scars really, and see them as part of us and our story, and really embrace them. Mm-hmm. I think that's the take-home message here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just going to have a quick chat about treatments,
mm-hmm.
And again, this will depend on where the issues are in any sexual dysfunction. Mm-hmm. So if there's an issue with libido, mm-hmm. then we need to have a look at what the underlying problems are, and
mm-hmm.
and I think that's where it's really important to have a medical assessment and make sure that there's no underlying medical conditions mm-hmm. that are affecting libido, and they may well be hormonal imbalances or some other illness, as we talked about before, mm-hmm. And then also fatigue related to stress and distress. Mm-hmm. And whether or not there are psychological issues, there may well be some depression or anxiety, or even mm-hmm. post-traumatic stress disorder if there has been trauma mm-hmm. around sex previously. And these are really important areas that need professional assistance. Mm-hmm. And there are some medications that can decrease libido, mm-hmm. so some antidepressants and anti-anxiety tablets, some hormonal therapies, even some contraceptive pills can affect libido, and so these will need to be assessed.
I don't think a lot of women know that.
That's right, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, they need to be assessed. It's kind of a catch-22, because you mm-hmm. need estrogen for sexual function and desire mm-hmm. and libido, but sometimes if you've got too much estrogen, then that can be an issue. Mm-hmm. And that's the same with testosterone and what we call androgens, which are mm-hmm. testosterone-like hormones. Mm-hmm. And if you've got too much, then you can have too much sexual desire and
mm-hmm.
and uncontrollable orgasms and things like that. If you have too little, then
mm-hmm.
that can really affect your libido and your arousal and orgasm and things. So all of those definitely need to be looked into. And then as far as treatments go for sexual issues in women, mm-hmm. at the moment there's not a lot. And I think this is an area which we're going to see some really exciting inroads into in the very near future. There was a medication developed in America, the first ever for female sexual issues, called Verbanserin. And that wasn't that long ago now. That one has been shown to have a modest improvement in libido and arousal and sexual satisfaction. About 1 in 5 women seem to also respond to sildenafil and those Viagra Cialis-like medications that were traditionally used in men, and that may well be a blood flow issue because that opens up the arteries in the pelvic area, and that allows increased lubrication and blood flow, and that can help with libido, and that's more arousal really at the time. And perhaps may help with orgasm if there's been an issue with vaginal dryness or lubrication. And there's also those other tools, things like lubricants, sexual stories or sexual visual aids, videos, those kinds of things that can really help a woman become aroused. So a lot of women find that reading a sexy story or an erotic piece of literature or watching a video can help them to become aroused. And these are all tools that I think everyone should embrace. They should be open for everyone to really use if they feel that they need to, because they do help a lot of women. Other treatments in relation to hormones would really be the androgens or testosterone-like substances, and there are a lot of different creams and formulations that you can use to improve testosterone levels. This is something really that's highly specialised and needs to be discussed with a specialist in the area. But that is extremely effective. So we know that testosterone and androgen type therapies are extremely effective in women with low libido, low sexual arousal, orgasm issues, those kind of things. The only potential issue with those testosterone and androgen like substances is the side effects can be unsightly. So if the levels are not right, if they're too high or the body's particularly sensitive to those therapies, then you can see things like acne, hairiness, deepening of the voice. And so we've got to be quite careful that we monitor them and adjust dosing accordingly. But certainly there are a few things available to women at the moment, and again, that need to address the underlying issue. I can't state how important that is. So any underlying psychological or physical issues need to be addressed before we're looking at using medication for any sexual issues. Just on that, there are some women who have quite a lot of pain with sexual intercourse, and there's a range of different conditions that can affect that. And that again needs a specialist assessment and management plan. That can involve special physiotherapy. There's some really good laser treatments. Mona Lisa is a laser treatment. There's a number of different therapies now for women who experience pain with sex. And so absolutely they're conditions that can be well managed now with the right team. So if you have any pain with sex and that is decreasing your enjoyment, then I absolutely encourage you to go and see a specialist in that area. And that may well be, I think starting with your primary healthcare provider is the best point of call, and they may well then choose a physiotherapist or a gynecologist, endocrinologist, continence nurse if pelvic floor or continence is an issue. So you can have a really wonderful team around you helping you with this issue, and I think that's important. I might add too that on your team, it could be worthwhile to have a sexual therapist. And there are a number of different specialists in this area, and they work individually and with couples to improve all aspects of sexual function. So it's worth having a chat with your healthcare provider about someone they might recommend. And occasionally you may well find a friend or family member who could also recommend someone, but there are an increasing number of these highly specialised people.
And a lot of my, I personally live rurally, and a lot of my girlfriends, they've found sexual therapists online through Skype or through Zoom. So there are those that option as well if you don't live close to a sexual therapist.
Absolutely. And that's really why Laura and I have developed all of these workshops, including this workshop today. And that is because we're very passionate about helping people wherever you are in the world, in every environment. And Laura lives in a very remote part of Australia. I generally live in the city but travel remotely, and we understand that it can be extremely hard to access all of those healthcare providers and the expertise that you're seeking. And so we're hoping that through these workshops we can empower you to learn a little bit, but also to seek out the help that you need. And as Laura mentioned, there are many of us, Laura and I included, who are providing telehealth, teleconference, video conference, telephone advice. And so we're really trying to make healthcare accessible to all. So Laura, if you had one take-home message to give to people watching this today, what would that be?
Well, for me, my take-home message is just, put yourself first. Ask the question. I think this video has been really great to maybe give you some words on what questions to ask, and to also just to know that you're not alone, that this affects everyone at different points in their life. And don't wait to live the life you love. Empower yourself. If you're exhausted, check those underlying conditions, see a specialist if you need to, but have that chat with your healthcare provider, and just don't wait, because life is too short and you are worth it.
Absolutely. So you are enough and you are worth it, and you deserve to be happy in and outside the bedroom. Thank you so much for joining us on this special workshop, and we hope you will watch some of our other videos and enjoy those too.
Thank you for watching Your Health Down.